Guy, who invented deathcore?
Who invented deathcore? I would say probably is up there.
You get crucified for saying something like that in the year 2026.
Oh yeah, don't say that right now because people are going to come after you.
Real quick before getting into today's episode, just wanted to shout out a few quick things. First of all, we have a Patreon for as low as $1.50 a month. You can get early access to these episodes as well as your name in the credits. And with the $5 tier, you can gain access to member-only channels in our Discord server. Secondly, we have merch. 2 designs that we absolutely love. You can find those over at indiemerchstore.com. And last but not least, we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, see these as they happen. We do those every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST. Yeah, that's it. Links to everything I just mentioned will be in the description, along with links to our Discord server and our other socials. That's it. That's all I got to plug. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing? It's a pleasure to talk to you. We were talking, Ian and I, beforehand, and it's kind of surprising we haven't talked to you sooner. This is episode 135. We've got a deathcore podcast. Every other show we get into the conversation about who invented deathcore. And look, 135 episodes it took to talk to Guy from the Red Chord. But
yeah, we were in there somewhere, but
I mean, look, it gets brought up a ton, if anything. So, but no, seriously, it's cool to talk to you. We were also kind of talking off stream here about the fact that it is funny. We're like kind of from the same era, but not really. Yen and I, MySpace deathcore was our thing, and the Red Chord's initial influence, at the very least, was like just on the cusp of that, like before it. So we didn't get to live through like 2000 to 2005, the Red Chord, and like the demo and the early records and all that. So excited to chat with you about just all that old stuff.
That was a confusing time in our lives. So.
How would you define that confusion?
There was a learning curve. There was a whole lot of learning curve trying to. Just when we were getting the band together and like trying to lay out what it is that we even want it to sound like. I remember just like having these conversations of, okay, so we sort of want to be a hardcore band, but we sort of want to be a death metal band. And we want to have all these different elements of this and that and whatever. And most people weren't really getting, most bands really weren't doing the whole, like, if you take all these bands and put them in a blender type of things quite yet. And that was, there was definitely some bands like doing a little bit of that, like on both sides of the death metal, and more so on like the death metal, like, but not being very well received with hardcore. And somehow this turned into somewhat of a novel concept. We didn't really think of ourselves as being deathcore per se. It wasn't quite like a dirty word at the time quite yet.
It just wasn't a word, I guess, at all, right? In the beginning, at the very least.
It took a while.
Well, like when I heard the term deathcore, in my head, I always thought dying fetus, skinless, internal bleeding, like that to me was deathcore.
You get crucified for saying something like that in the year 2026.
Oh yeah, don't say that right now because it's people are going to come after you.
Yeah. So but it was just a matter of I was coming very much from the hardcore scene, and but it's funny. Like I was listening for a little bit leading up to it, and it's amazing. Like somebody was like, "Oh, you hear that mathcore band Candaria?" Like Candaria is a huge influence on us from the early days, and there was a lot of these like early '90s, like mid '90s bands that were really influencing the first incarnation of the Red Chord. And it was like some of that was like the New York City death metal, like the all like the Suffocations and Pyrexia, and in my head, like that was sort of what the deathcore was, where it was like basically a death metal band that you could sort of go and mosh to.
Yeah.
But then like the reality was the on the other side of it, like the bands I was listening to, like, you know, Hatebreed or Buried Alive or all these other or All Out War, they were metalish bands or they were hardcore bands, and they had like a tinge of that, except that the fans were definitely not going to get along between one and the other. And it was part of that was just like, if you were a long-haired, you know, jean jacket guy going to the Hatebreed show, you were probably going to get into a fight or get hit and not like it very much. And
targeted specifically. Yeah,
which it's a bum out that happens, but it's just this age-old sort of problem. And when we were starting, we were like, we kind of want to appeal to everybody, like,
which is controversial. It's a big move, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but like, as much as it makes sense for us, obviously, to mix hardcore and death metal back then, it was almost sort of a fight between, it was just like, it's two things. It's like there was this like purity, it's like the worst word to say it, but that's kind of how they saw it, right? Like death metal is death metal, hardcore is hardcore, and then people are trying to blend it, which was probably extremely shocking.
So the early days of the Red Chord were really interesting because particularly so we were from the Boston area, and we had an amazing scene in Boston, and there was just a lot going on for a lot of different genres. One of the things that was like really prevalent was that like in my late high school, I started going to like a lot of these like essentially metalcore shows. There was a lot of that. Like people were renting out little VFWs and putting on these shows. So that was like the scene that was accessible. There was a lot of people having a lot of luck with, even on the local level, of just like, okay, you're going to get a Converge show, you're going to get a Cave-In show, like before they were like Cave-In, when they were still like kind of like a mosh metal core thing. And that was like what was bringing out all the people. So we were kind of like, I was going to a lot of that in terms of, that was my weekends as a high school kid. And I'm like, all right, well, but I want to play this kind of death metal interspersed thing. So when we started playing shows, like we were peers and you know, playing alongside bands like Killswitch Engage or Converge or Unearth or whatever, just because that was stuff that was there. And now Gunface is our guitar player. If you see him on the Twitch stream, his thing is at Knighted Throne. So he and Greg are supposed to be watching. But so Gunface is like the metalhead guy. And I remember he was always like, you know, it's great that we're playing all these shows, but is there any way you could get us like on a death metal show? And that was like, all right, well, yeah, like we can try. It was very difficult to get those shows. And then half the time, if you got on the show, there's probably not going to be anyone there because the metalcore scene was just healthier. So like, I remember after we were doing like all these like random in having success with these metalcore VFW shows, I remember getting on a show at Monstrosity that they had some sort of overlap with, you know, Florida death metal band with some sort of overlaps like Cannibal Corpse or whatever. And it was like 12 people. I was like, yeah, all right, no, cool. We're gonna play with Monstrosity because like, you know, Mike wants to get in on that. And I remember like at one point we played like it was one of the weirdest shows we'd ever played, but like we played with like Immortal and Manowar and like Chimera was on the show and just 36 Crazy Fists. Like it was like the strangest thing. And we definitely realized early on that we were having better luck with the short-haired scene. We wanted to appeal to everybody, and like, you know, we had these influences like Dying Fetus was doing really well, and they were definitely somebody that we looked up to. Now, do they think of themselves as being deathcore? I mean, I kind of think so.
They always had the heavy kind of like hardcore influence to them for sure, right? Like to this day, they'll play like hardcore fests and like.
I mean, now they are. At the time, they were struggling with like Dying Fetus was like, you know, they were really having a hard time getting that like short-haired crowd out. as awesome as they were, like on that, like Killing on Adrenaline, and we became friends with like when one of the early Dying Fetus like blowouts, like we became friends with like Misery Index, which was like 3/4 of Dying Fetus or whatever at the time.
Yeah. There was I guess there was also just like a crop of bands that were, I always kind of, from my ignorant point of view, kind of saw them as the just more like chaotic bands, just in general, like blanket statement around like it's a genreless thing, right? But the Converge, the Dillinger Escape Plans, the early Between the Buried and Me, or even the heavy low lows and See You Next Tuesdays and stuff, like I always kind of put all those bands in a similar bucket, just because it felt like it was always a mashup of different things, and it was just chaos, right? It was just very, I don't want to say random. Random's not the right word, but it was very, very eclectic, right? I always kind of put you guys in that sort of category, but I assume most of those bands kind of went through that sort of weird phase of people not really knowing what bucket to put them in or what show to put them on, or who their fan base is,
we got, in the early days, we got a lot of like, if you put Cryptopsy and Dillinger in the blender, this is what you'd kind of get. And it's so our like little crew of bands, we had some early adopters that we just became very tight with. And it was Between the Buried and Me, Premonitions of War, us, and then like say like A Life Once Lost, like we're like they were less on like the death metal type side, and then eventually like we had a couple bands that we sort of like pulled into that social circle, like Black Dahlia Murder. We took them out on one of the early tours, and like we were always doing stuff with like Between the Buried and Me, and it was nice to have these kind of like-minded bands that were both doing something that was a little bit progressive. They were a lot more melodic, I think, like, at the heart of it, a little bit more progressive, but especially in that first album, like we were pretty much in lockstep with like, yeah, cool. We're like blending genres and leaning heavily on death metal, while a lot of people were going more in that like Poison the Well type direction.
Yeah. But that is what I find interesting, because it goes back to what I was just saying. Like I felt like it was again, like a bit of a genreless thing, in the sense that like it's not like the two of you really sounded alike, or you guys in Premonition of War or A Life Once Lost, they're very different sounding bands, but I guess it's just the common goal of just doing something different, and the respect there and having fun with your team.
Oh yeah, and I mean we definitely loved the way that they played. We loved the people in the bands, and especially at that era, we were you're trying to figure out like how to do basic things, like how do you book a tour? And okay, well, I like these people and they're from a slightly different region. Like, how do we actually like trade shows and put something together and, get it on the road?
Yeah, just have a show happen with the two bands and it makes sense. It's not like a 20-hour drive both ways. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we're kind of not beating around the bush, but there's some stuff I'd love to get into, like early, or a bit of a history lesson on the early days, inception, origin story stuff for the Red Chord. And I know, that the probably always gets brought up. Ictus was kind of like prior to the Red Chord. Can you kind of walk us through maybe the inception of that and kind of the progression into the Red Chord?
Yeah. So obviously like I said, Boston has a really healthy music scene with a lot of different influences. We had a great death metal scene. There was bands floating around the area, like Scatter Remnants, Eternal Suffering. There was just a whole lot of everything. And then on the other side, like Converge, and the other side, there's like these, just hardcore bands or whatever. And we kept like, so Kevin Rampelberg from the Red Chord and I, like, we were like the starting line with some of our high school friends that had been in different really horrible local bands. And then we finally got to the point
what's the worst horrible band name you had prior?
There was one band that I joined with those guys in high school called Water Child. It was pretty bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was as bad as it. The name wise, it was like I remember like when I was like, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, Waterchild. And they're like, oh no, we really want you to join. And I'm like, it's called Waterchild. Like I don't know what that is. And I mean, we also like our buddy Ryan was playing guitar, and he was like amazing guitar player, but he wanted to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. He had like a section of the set that he wanted to. He was like, yeah, when can I play like a funk instrumental? And it was rough. Like, so as we were like, it was just like, dude, like we don't need solos, we don't need anything, we just need like breakdowns and yeah. So we were able to evolve into Ictus, which it was kind of more taking the Converge with, we had this guitar player that was really into death metal, like from more of the pure death metal. We call him Death Metal Joe. His name was Joe.
Yeah.
So Joe didn't really love the hardcore aspects of it, but he brought like a lot more of like these underground, like death metal things. And very quickly, I remember like as we were getting into my first year of college and stuff, we were like the summer before, we're like, all right, yeah, like we're gonna like all stay local and do this, and you know, like it just yeah, totally like, oh, I'm gonna go away, I got a girlfriend, it was like, all right, well, like I guess it's so either way, Kevin and I very quickly like start transitioning into this Ictus thing, and we ended up like things really took a nice turn when. So Ictus is playing some local shows, and when we met up with Mike Justin, who's of every awesome band in that time, and then with Mike McKenzie, who was just this hidden talent. He was singing for some other weirdo band, and we met him at like a battle of the bands that we kind of played together. And then when we got that lineup together, Magic
I love
started.
How there's like a disgust in the way you, yeah, we kind of played a battle of the bands.
Oh no, we played a battle of the bands. It was yeah. So yeah, we played a battle of the bands and ended up like recruiting Mike McKenzie from one of the other bands. We got talking about like weird music, and I remember we were like, hey, if we had like a Death Metal Joe didn't want to do it anymore, and and suddenly we're, oh, okay, like he mentioned that he played guitar, like he's into some crazy shit, like let's see how this goes. And then we start kind of having conversations about like the direction. Adding Mike Justin to the band was probably the most professional step in the right direction. So Mike was in a bunch of bands at the time. So he was in a band that eventually became Backstabbers Incorporated. And he was in this other kind of like emo, grindcore, screamo band that was on Robotic Empire, Robodog Records at the time, called Hassan Saba and the Holy Hand Grenades. And
rolls off the tongue, easy to Google.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So yeah, Hassan Saba was actually doing really well. They were the super group of all these like late 90s emo, screamo, grindcore bands from like all over the country. And the guys had actually released records, and it was, I think it was so part of it, like we never really, like we started playing shows, and Mike was just phenomenal, but like we didn't really have any like ambition to sort of take it on the road and get out there. And but part of why we ever ended up like getting out there and actually getting on the road and doing tours at all was just because Hassan Saba like booked like an 8-week tour and then imploded before the first shows. Then Backstabbers Incorporated was like, oh, we've been around longer, so we're going to take it. We're going to buy a school bus, and then we're going to go on tour. Okay. And then the bus caught fire on the way to the first show, and then like they basically like canceled the rest of the tour. And then one of the guys from Hassan Saba was like, I've got like connections all over the place from the Hassan Saba tour, like, can I book Red Chord's like first tour? And we ended up just getting in the van and doing a couple weeks and like just playing like weird spots.
Oh, okay. Dude, that's such a random like do you remember kind of that conversation about like I want to book you guys on this tour, and like you realizing you were actually going on tour? Because you mentioned like that wasn't really the goal. Like, was there like excitement around that, or like?
Oh yeah. So Kevin and I loved playing shows all the time. I mean, sometimes like, we were always very appreciative of anything that we got to do, and especially when we were playing local, we started doing really well. We were getting down to Rhode Island or Connecticut or Maine or just anywhere in New England, and like CBGB's was a hot spot in New York City. Like we could get to upstate New York, or we could get to New York City with all right, yeah, you just get a bunch of cars and just kind of go. It's all within 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But like it was just like, wait a second, like I can't borrow mom's car to drive down to Alabama with like a bunch of guys. What are we gonna do? And when the Hassan Isaba guy was like, all right, well, no, we'll rent a vehicle. And it's like, well, like it was just like, oh, okay, sure. And just kind of like sit back and let it happen. And we were in the beginning, like, so we were already kind of getting in New England, we were sort of being embraced by a lot of this like metalcore sort of scene. And then when we had ex-members of Hassan Isaba, we were like being embraced by that scene of like, it's kind of like the space that like Orchid and Page 99, Phobia, Creationist Crucifixion, like so basically like basement grindcore.
Yeah.
And we were playing like a range of, sometimes we play a metalcore show, but then other times we'd be, playing, with some like tragedy related band or like His Hero's Gone related band. So it was kind of just a mess, like where it was like, we're living my like vision of like, yeah, we want to play with everything.
Right. You kind of landed in that one like unwillingly, but that was the goal, I guess.
Yeah. And it was like, we had a lot of success when we played with lighter bands, like, but besides the fact that we were this, like really, especially when you didn't know what was coming. We looked like this mishmash walking out on stage, because like you have a couple short-haired guys that are like pretty like unassuming with like kind of baggy jeans on, and then a couple like like a long-haired dude wearing like some scratchy logo shirt. Like when you're just like, what is about to happen? Mm-hmm. And it was probably the most gratifying era of the band, where you're going to play in front of like nobody, or you're going to play in front of everybody, but you're going to have this like element of surprise that nobody knew what exactly to expect. Once we were like out of the, like people in New England knew what to expect. But when we started just playing these like random spots, like and just were totally unknown, playing for $12 a night or whatever, like the element of surprise was amazing.
Yeah. It's like, well, what the hell is this red shirted dude doing fronting the bed? Why do you have a million red shirts? All these old show photos of you're always in a red shirt.
Well, it was my appreciation for a band making anything besides a black t-shirt.
Okay.
Like if bands made
it wasn't always just red. You had green, you had blue, you had all the other colors. Yeah. It's a rare black t-shirt now that I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because every band out there made black shirts, and if a band was going to go through the trouble of making a non-black shirt, I was very appreciative to differentiate it from the hundreds of just straight black t-shirts that I had.
Even right now, you're not wearing a black t-shirt.
Yeah, Genghis-Tron,
there we go.
Beige shirt. Yeah.
Well, it probably led to a moment. Do you recall a little bit when you guys maybe felt like something special was happening? Because I'm guessing like during those shows, you said like we had those moments where people didn't know what to expect. So it probably came with people coming to you afterwards and being like, whoa, what happened, guys? That was awesome. Kind of like seeing that people are latching on to what you were doing. Do you recall a bit like that timeline of maybe we've got something special around here? Like,
so I don't want to sound like cocky about this or anything, but like when we got into the basement and we got like, I was a fan of Mike J's playing, and that kid was in all of my favorite like local bands. He could, he could just play absolutely anything. And I remember when Kevin and I were having the conversations, we're like, we got to get Mike to join the band. He had like produced like a little 8-track demo. Kevin was the drummer and was in the process. He was still starting to be like a multi-instrumentalist and writing a lot of stuff on guitar. And it was like, well, if we could get this guy to do that, like we could literally really kind of like raise the bar here. And yeah, so like the moment that we sat down and like we started being like, okay, he's gonna go for it. He's gonna join the band. And we started
go.
we started hearing like him play the Ictus songs like on drums, and we're like, dude, hey, can you play that double time? Like and
yeah, make everything faster now.
Yeah. I mean, like there's a bunch of cyborgs out there doing all these like 300 BPM things. It was very rare that you would get somebody at the time to be like, I can blast. And when Gunface started paying attention to Mike, and he's like, wow, I can like write this ridiculous stuff and Mike can actually play it. Like you could see like the gears turning in everyone's head that we were just like, all right, something awesome has happened.
Like a guitarist. I see how it is.
Yeah, we used to just, Gunface would like throw stuff at him and just be like, all right, yeah, can you do something to this? And it's like, ah.
So he'll figure it out. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So in my head, it started getting to the point where it was like, all we have to do is supply an audience. Like if we can get in front of people and we could even just to see, to have that performance with like Mike's playing, because he's just an unignorable drummer. He hits his kit so hard and he's just all over the damn place with his playing. And like there wasn't very much of that, like because you had people like he was on a split with his old band and Ben Kohler's first band from Converge. He was in a band called Force Fed Glass. So they had done like a split together and like it was like Ben's a blaster, Mike's a blaster. The guy from Killswitch Engage like was in some death metal stuff. He's got some blasting in him, but very few and far between. You had a lot of guys that could groove and do the mosh parts, but very few that could do the real like grindy stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so when two things. Where can we hear the Ictus demos? The people need.
I have it in my basement.
Trust me, I know how to find music. It's nowhere.
Okay, that's why you're here. Actually, he made up this entire he just wanted you he wants the demos basically is what's happening.
The world needs it. I'm just asking for the culture.
I do agree. That would be great. Yeah.
Well, I know I have a burn of the Ictus demo in my basement right now. I don't even have a CD player at the moment to rip it onto anything on. But yeah, let me see. I don't think the world actually needs it. I think that it's better to keep.
You're gonna get challenged on this one.
We'll challenge you. And look, just send me your address. I'll Amazon you a little USB CD player. We'll make it work.
So it was funny. So when we recorded the Ictus demo, I don't have a copy of the mic one. We did like a prior one at this kid's dad's house, and Kevin just texted me right now. He says the world does not need Ictus demos. I promise you. So
the SOS message came in.
Yeah.
For the love of God, please don't do that. Yeah.
But it was funny because when I was recording the vocals, even at that stage, I was starting to do the highs and the lows. And I remember the kid is like, you can't do low vocals when my dad's home. I'm like, what? and he's like, yeah, the dad equates it with Satan, and you're okay to scream, but we gotta wait until he's gonna go out and get groceries, so then you could do your lows. And he was trying to be I can maybe pitch shift it later, just so that he doesn't get real mad. And it was what? Really? We're giving you money for a demo. And he's like, yeah, but dad will kick you out if he thinks you're into Satan. And it's just oh man.
So how does that story end? You waited for him to go to the groceries and you had a half hour to bust out all the lows?
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. There wasn't anything great about it. I think it would probably mean more to you to not hear it, but so.
All right. So then how does I guess that is kind of the recordings of the demos and Mike coming in. That's kind of where, from my understanding, there's kind of that transition, right?
So if you listen to the Fuse Together, when we did
the demo before.
So in Fuse Together in Revolving Doors, we had a reissue that we did on Robotic Empire at one point. And we did a track called Self-Induced Suffering, and there was one other one there, Better Judgment. Those were both originally Ictus songs, except that in Better Judgment, the drums are like twice as fast in the beginning, just so we get it over with faster with Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Like it but those were Ictus songs, and then it turned into that they were like, all right, we don't have enough songs to play a whole Red Chord set. And then we started like being like, all right, we'll play the remnants. And then like the first Red Chord song that we wrote was the Jar Full of Bunny Parts. So it was more like a proof of concept of like, all right, we're gonna do like blast, blast, slam, mosh, like then like blast, even slower mosh, like. And it was like just a flex with like being able to be like, all right, Mike, how fast can you play that? Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, because listening back to the demo, like that 2001 thing, the summer demo, whatever it is, like in some of the songs, there really is that like, a proper breakdown, because there is like, often as you were alluding to earlier, Dying Fetus would be, or Skinless would be like a band that would have been considered deathcore and stuff, and people will say Suffo had breakdowns and stuff like that, which true for sure, but on your guys's demo, like what we now really consider breakdowns, like a metalcore breakdown or what's now considered a deathcore breakdown as well, where it's not just like a slam or a groove. There's some of that stuff on the summer demo, and I found that really cool to listen back to, because we're always trying to go back to like what were some of the first breakdowns with death metal or deathcore and all that sort of stuff, right? But I think it was very like an obvious breakdown on that demo, and it does always hit harder when there's something fast going before it, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, and there was definitely some like overly gratuitous bands that would come out, just, like local bands that would just be like just mosh slam all the time. And we're like, well, there's a point where, your crowd's both exhausted and it's like not really musical at that point. It's, just this like just kind of slop with a groove over it, which, I mean, in the right setting, I could appreciate anything, but that wasn't really what we were trying to go for at the time.
Mm-hmm. So can you kind of talk to us about like that demo? Maybe like anything you can talk to us about that kind of era of the band, maybe from the recording or the shows you guys were playing around it, or because that was like something that was recorded to sell during a tour. That was kind of the basis of that demo existing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, when we like scrambled to get that together. So like that series of events, Hassan Isaba imploding, which if you haven't checked them out, they're a cool band. There's definitely they're a wacky band, and then the well, yeah. So then like we were very short notice, like trying to figure out how to be a band and actually like be on the road. And yeah, so we just got that demo together in Mike's basement, on like an 8-track, started just ripping CDRs. I think we made like a whopping 100 of them. Our old bass player, Adam Wentworth, like he couldn't go on tour at the time, but he was quite the graphic designer, and he made that like cool little like one panel insert for it. There was a little scandal because we had disappearing ink on our t-shirts. Apparently we didn't dry them correctly. We tried to like do like the first like 100 shirts that we made for that tour in particular. We were like, oh, okay, cool. Like we could like buy blank t-shirts from like, the Salvation Army or something, and then just go and screen print them ourselves. And we didn't realize that there was something in the drying process this is the punk rockers from like Hassan Saba, like teaching us how to do it. And then every one of them, like the ink disappeared as soon as you washed it.
Okay,
basically,
completely like back to a blank
yes,
t-shirt.
back to totally blank or like next to blank. And it was like, we went from like, okay, we're going to like make an extra $1 on, we're going to make an extra $1 by like not, going through a screen printing company and
yes.
we'll sell these, we'll sell these t-shirts for like, $7 or whatever. And then that turned into like, I remember when we went on tour after that. So we were one of the first bands that ever worked with indie merch, and the company that the indie merch guys came from, love indie merch. They were the guys that owned indie merch in the back in the day run this company that still exists, a screen printing company called Jack Prints. And Jack Prints was doing like our early screen printing when the guys from indie merch, Jack Prints, whatever, they was like doing shirts in their mom's like garage or something. And we ended up, when we went in our next tours, we actually had like people would come with the blank shirt and be like, we'd have to give them like another shirt, be like, here, I'll just take the blank back and here's a new one. So it was like we were recovering from the 100 shirts that we.
That was the trick to get a new T-shirt, basically. You
bring a blank. Yeah, you go to the Salvation Army, buy a blank, and bring it to a Red Chord show.
Yeah, because that was about to be my next question. Do you think right now there might be people on eBay saying, "I swear it was Red Chord T-shirt. It was," trying to sell like a blank shirt at the moment? That would be the question.
I mean, what's worse, that
we had our email list.
Washed their shirt since back in the day and are gonna sell it, and someone is gonna still to this day get fucked with it.
So there was like we had an email list that we like put out at the time, and I remember like we were like, whatever you do, don't wash the shirt. And like we had people say like, oh, I'm so glad I got your email ahead of time because I didn't wash the shirt. And then like they would like, I kind of wish I kept track of it. It was like for my old AOL account.
Because that's what I was going to ask. Like, how would people even communicate that to you back in the day, right? Because it's like, yeah, like you said, people were probably just showing up to a show with the next time they saw you guys. Because like, how the fuck else were they going to reach out, right? They weren't going to call you.
So I was like emailing the 100 people on the thing, being like, hey, remember that? By the way. If you come to the show in the future, like if you screwed up your shirt, just let us know. And we had people cash them in.
Real question though, when did you guys notice there was disappearing ink?
It was like we did the tour and then we started getting people saying, oh yeah.
Okay. Just checking. I just wanted to see if you guys sold some shirts knowingly.
No. It was like these things are gone. It was like as though if we had sold all the CDRs and then realized that there was nothing on them or something. Like we just had this like, what, like, because we went from being like, well, I guess that was good. We got rid of 100 shirts in the course of 2 weeks, and then being like, what?
Well, there was some sort. You were kind of ahead of your time because right now with all the limited release, it's the same thing for you, except it's the limited wears. So you can only wear it once and then it's gone.
It's a video game. Your armor goes to zero and it destructs. Yeah, I mean,
gone. So
I wish
one time.
I wish I could have convinced myself at the time that it was a positive thing and that was what. No, it worked exactly as intended.
Yeah, that was our goal.
Yeah,
I mean, and like you said, you guys just wanted to save a bit of money, and I assume did the shirts yourself. Like you guys did the shirts yourself. You guys put in way too much effort for that to be the result.
Oh yeah,
there's no way that's like a positive experience for y'all.
Yeah.
Just a quick second. Pardon the interruption. Talk about the sponsor of today's episode, as always. Indie Merch Store. Huge shout out to them. Got a few things to talk about today. First up, we've got Disembodied Tyrant. They just kicked off their US run with the Black Dahlia Murder, the Ictus Strain, and Corpse Pile. You can find tickets at your local venue to catch one of the heaviest tours of the spring. If you can't make it, 3 of the bands on that tour, we're talking Disembodied Tyrant, Black Dahlia Murder, and the Ictus Strain. They all have merch over at indiemerchstore.com. So help support the bands that way if you can't make it to a show. Next up, we've got Ingested. They just unleashed a brutal new track. You can stream Watch You Fold, featuring John of Dying Fetus, on your favorite platform via Metal Blade Records. You can also secure a copy of the brand new album that is coming out soon. It's available on 2 vinyl colorways, along with CDs and a crazy amount of merch. You can also see the brand new Watch You Fold t-shirt that just got added to the mix. So secure yours today. All that at indiemerchstore.com. Now, last but not least, 3 weeks from now, a tour is starting. The Shadow of Intent alongside Angel Maker, Mental Cruelty, and Synestia. You can grab your tickets right now. There's some low ticket warnings on a bunch of these dates. Insane lineup. Secure your tickets at shadowofintent.com and snag merch from all of the bands on this tour over at indiemerchstore.com. As always, you can use code BRUTALITY at checkout to save 10% off of your entire order. Again, that's code BRUTALITY at checkout for 10% off. As always, massive shout out to Indie Merch Store for supporting the show. And now, back to the episode. So Mike recorded the demo, but he was in the band at that point, right?
So Mike originally recorded a demo for us, like in the Ictus days, and then he was in the band, and we recorded the the Mike demo that was on on that tour. But yeah, like, so when we were in his basement, and he kind of was like, "Hey, I like what you guys are doing. Can I record a thing for you? I'll do it for free." With Ictus. And then his big parameter for, like, when we started being like, what would be really great is if you played on this. And he's like, I'm already in like all these bands. I can't, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then, we just like kept nudging him until he did it.
Yeah. And then you kept getting free recordings because now he was in the band. That was the play all along.
Well, so yeah, when we got to fuse together, that was when we did like a real go to a studio and all that jazz. But
we'll get to that in a second. But because you say that, but then at the same time, I heard it was a 3-day thing. So we'll put a pin on that. We got to talk about so name changes to the Red Chord.
Yeah.
At the same time, an iconic logo is born. Talk to me about it. How does this logo exist? Because it is, to this day, one of the... I love this fucking logo. It's truly iconic.
All right. So one of the bands that... So when Backstabbers did the exploding flaming bus tour, they were on... they were on tour with a band called Advocate. And, the bus catches fire on the way to Maine, going to the first show. Advocate, the guitar player, Kevin Bledsoe, he is a phenomenal artist, and he was already he was doing all the Advocate guitar work, artwork, and like he'd done some other shirts for other bands. And I remember being like, well, hey, I think that this was before that tour. We had said to him like, hey, would you do a logo for us? And essentially he sketches this thing on like a napkin. He's like, yeah, what do you think of this? And then Adam scanned it, and Adam Wentworth, our one of our original bass players, he cleaned it up, thankfully, because otherwise we had this thing like on a napkin type of thing. And then Adam cleaned it up and made it like a digital file, and that was it. Like it was like a really quick thing, and we weren't really thinking that was going to be like the logo for the rest of our career. But,
how do you feel about it? Because again, it's like it's really different, I feel, than what even at the time what was being done logo wise. Like it's not like it was. I don't know. Again, it's hard to pin like comparison to a scene because it wasn't like a defined style per se to begin with. But I don't know, man. There's just the shapes kind of going in and out of it. There's like something to it. But like, what do you think about the logo?
It's funny. Like, so a lot of people would say to us things like, oh yeah, like I like the font to your logo. Can you like send me that font? And it was like, it's not a font, dude. It was, you know, like in and of itself, it was a piece of artwork.
Proper napkin drawing,
and
dude.
send you a napkin. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and it was funny because people would point out every once in a while there'd be some other bands that would take some liberties with a big swish on there, and it would just be like, oh, like I see what they're going for. Like, but yeah, like it was. I thought it was pretty awesome, and you know, we at the time I remember thinking like we were exploring between like scratchy logos because there was there were definitely like some of these death metal bands that were doing that. We were like, oh, do we want to do that? And then all the metalcore bands that were doing these layouts like had a different look. And we started thinking like, well, what if we just try not to look like, we wanted something just in general that was going to just be less, like a little bit more like unassuming, where all of our early like fused together and stuff and the demos, like we tried to keep this like clean kind of like, you don't know what, if you're just throwing it in, like we didn't want you to think like this is metal or this is hardcore, that like we wanted you to kind of go into it with like a clean slate.
So less of a visual element that kind of gives away like, oh, this is what we're trying to do, or like pigeonholing you into a genre or something before you even listen to it. Like, and I get what you're saying, like the demo and the first record, it's like white, right? And it's very simple with like basically the logo and the name of the album, and like that's it, right?
Yeah, like every metalcore band at the time, that dude, like the Dark Icon guy there from Killswitch was like doing the layouts, and he had a very particular style, but all the layouts kind of looked like you knew what a metalcore record was going to sound like. And you know, and then there was these other guys that were doing these more elaborate, you know, death metal layouts. You knew exactly what you were getting into. So we were like, well, how do you kind of break the mold there and go off in another direction? I'm really glad that we had people like Adam at the time that were a little bit more, they were better with like the art direction to say like, hey, what if we, because like that definitely wasn't coming from like my head of, I like the idea of like, I like the idea of, hey, what if this isn't so direct? And I could get down with it, but at the same time, I probably could have gotten down with like a scratchy logo or something.
Yeah. He's able to have like a creative vision for everything visual, I guess. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So
I mean, that's clutch to have in a band. Let's be real, because ultimately it is such a big part of, you know, like I was saying, like that logo is fucking sick, and it holds up like what, 30 years later, whatever it is.
It's
almost 25,
going on
25 years, 26 years,
yeah,
and counting. You know, so I don't know. There's like stuff like that and we'll get into. I feel the same way about a lot of the recordings you guys have done in general. There's a certain timelessness to a lot of that stuff, but I think that always comes with some sort of creative vision that makes it that, right? That's whether it be a mix that stuff stands the test of time 20 years later, or artwork that doesn't feel dated because of the specific look it went for at the time. That was
absolutely.
At the time, right? Okay, so Fused Together. Talk to me about the recording of that record. It seemed pretty chaotic from what I was reading up about it.
All right, so we went to New Alliance, which at the time was in one location. It was like in the lower level of some jam space in just outside of Kenmore Square in Boston. And New Alliance was interesting because they did a lot of like they had they were an analog studio. Our album was recorded on reels, and then it was mixed. It was one of the early albums that was mixed down to actual like digital Pro Tools when they went and mixed it.
Like digitize the tapes and
mix it and that was like a very new concept, at least for that time frame. Whereas like now you got like no analog whatsoever. So Mike J really was interested in that studio in particular. they were known for recording I think the first Godsmack record. That was like that was one of their big things that came out of there. But Mike knew them from there was a local band called Anomanes, and he loved the drum sounds on Anomanes, and he was like, if I could have the drums sound like this, that would be awesome. And we were at the time, like Robotic Empire had this like setup with us where it was Robodog Records still. And it was like, hey, yeah, like I'll split the recording costs with you. We're like, okay. So in his head, he thought that we were going to like go in and record an album in like a day. And we're like, all right, we got a real studio. And we're like, we're going to record it in 3 days and then mix in 1 day and then master it. And I think we threw him for a little bit of a loop at the time because it was uncommon for bands. Like everybody was thinking, demo, scratchy quality. And we were shooting for this thing that was a little bit more pristine. As gritty as the record sounds, like it was, by comparison to like the basement grind bands, like that was pretty slick.
And more expensive, more so.
Yes. So we recorded with a guy named Andrew Snyder, who's awesome. Like he records, like he plays with Julie Christmas's band. He records bands like, he eventually recorded bands like Daughters and Unsane and, but he had like a whole lot of these very like stoner, noisy type Boston bands that he had a pretty good grasp on at the time.
And just so that we're clear, did you have to wait for the groceries that time, or you like was that?
No, we could make whatever demon noises that we wanted. He'll say.
Just making sure. Just
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, this was not that prior studio. The guy's like stage name was like Captain Fantastic. So we had a whole different experience working with Andrew than Captain
Maybe
Fantastic.
That should have been kind of an indicator of what would be coming next, though, with perspective. But
I don't know if I'd rather be in a band called Captain Fantastic or Waterchild, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was par for the course at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been one or the other. Like, could have been Waterchild with the other name as like a song, or the other name with Waterchild as a song would have made sense, I think. So
yeah,
depends on. So you could make the noise that you wanted to make. So there's that.
Now the sad thing that happened during the recording, and this is so when you hear that 2001 demo, Catalepsy was on there.
Yeah,
and that was like one of the earlier songs after Jar Full of Bunny Parts, and there was this thing on the 2001 demo, and that was I called it the Bog Monster noise. Which there's like a stop and it goes into this like whatever deep guttural growl.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened in the New Alliance studio and the Fuse Together recording was I fried my voice so bad. I was the last one tracking, and it got to the point where I couldn't. Sound wasn't coming out. And we didn't have any more time in the studio. So when I went to do that little Bog Monster noise, like it was this most pathetic little like, and like I cringe to this day, because if I had an extra like $300 to my name at the time, I could have like been like, all right, I'll come back tomorrow, but instead it is on there as is, which is this like super embarrassing like moment of my life captured for eternity.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
now we're talking about it just to bring it back.
Oh yeah, it's you're triggering me on this. So,
but yeah, so it was a 3-day recording for all of it.
Yeah, 3 days of tracking, 1 day of mixing, and then we sent it over to New Alliance East is the mastering engineer. That was just like he was literally like a door away, and it's this guy Nick Zampiello who's mastered a couple of our records. It was awesome, but yeah, that was it. Like I mean when I say like we were day 3 had to finish the tracking because day 4 he was blocked out for mixing, and and it was like we were already like recording to the tape, so like you were stuck with whatever was there, and then he's mixing it down. it's crazy to think that like now there's the capability that you could just be like, oh yeah, you don't like that? No, I'll be back tomorrow. Like, like you know, like.
So
yeah, that was
so
rough.
how long did you track, and I guess what was why'd you lose gas? What happened there?
So it was a combination of, so the vocals on the whole album were doubled. Very limited experience with recording. So it was like I was going in, I was playing with a pop screen in front of my face. And so I don't know if you like, at this point you go on YouTube or you go on these Instagram pages and everyone like teaches you how to scream and this fry scream and fuck that. Like it's, I was like literally going in and screaming my head off as hard as I could, because in my head, it was like the more I had veins popping out of everywhere and the harder I was screaming, I was hoping to capture that like rawness on the actual recording. I wouldn't say that I definitely don't sing correctly, and I don't really pay much attention to like a lot of the tutorials and stuff, because I do think that there is something to like, you know, stuff comes from your throat. Like you're not necessarily gonna, you know, you're not necessarily gonna sing correctly all the time. Some of that's like you're running around and being, but you do not need to do that necessarily in the studio to the point where I'm like, you know, headbanging and screaming and doing whatever. And by the second time through, I was fried. And yeah, not the most shining moment.
Well, there's a point to be made. Sorry, Dom, but like there's a point to be made. Like that's a conversation we have a lot in terms of like back in the days, there was this mystery almost, and it was special to Scream because nobody really knew. It was just like, oh my God, Phil Bozeman can do that. Mitch Locker, like what is happening type thing. And there's we had the podcast with Despise Icon with Alex, and I was wondering because Steve sounds so amazing on it, and he said, well, I just said fuck the techniques and go like instinctive, like just like go for it. So there's something to be said also. I'm not against techniques, and it's great that but it's also kind of special to tell somebody to scream, but like, oh no, just do it like effortless and do it perfectly like that. It's a screaming, like it's kind of an instinctive like animal kind of process. So it's interesting to hear that, because there's some rawness to that.
So for now, one of the interesting things, like two of my big influences were Frank Mullen from Suffocation and Tim Singer from Dead Guy. And I remember like Frank Mullen did something for me where I was into, I liked, my early bands, like in, like 93, 90, 94 or whatever, like there was all these like, Pantera and Anthrax, and I mean, even like Napalm Death and stuff to an extent. I could understand exactly how those guys were making the noises that they were making, like even for Napalm Death. I remember like at some point, I mean, you hear Slayer, you can tell that that's a human being and he's barking and yelling and whatever. And there was no like, he's going high, he's going whatever, he's saying fast words. But I remember hearing Suffocation for the first time and just going like, wait, what? Like that's a person. That's a person that sounds like that. Like, what is he doing? And there was like this oh shit moment where my voice went from when I started singing in these like screamy alternative, whatever, like Rage Against the Machine type bands, like as a early high school kid and whatever, to like suddenly like, wait, if I could try to sound like, Frank Mullen, I didn't know how you would do it. I was like, is the guy like, is he singing with a sock over the mic? Is he like, but it became like my life's goal. And then on the other side, you had Tim Singer from Dead Guy, who he was screaming, and it reminded me of like when someone's dad gets really fucking upset and just is so pissed off and angry. Like when my dad would get mad at me and like he would raise his voice or whatever it is, he was the scariest, like eye bulging, it was like reckless abandon just coming out of his mouth. And that was the way Tim Singer's voice like struck me. So it was a combination of like those two guys, like is basically what, what I was going for was like, wait, if I could like sound more like a person than Frank, but sound like a monster when I want to, and both do the big monster and the little monster with the highs and the lows in between. I mean, essentially that was Dreaming in Dog Years when you put it all together.
Yeah.
It was like there you go.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm trying to understand too, like when you were playing live, like that wasn't an issue though, because not long enough of a set, or was it just different because it was in the studio you were trying to overdo it? Like what was the discrepancy?
Oh yeah,
or because it was like just a longer recording than.
My voice is temperamental now and then, but no, in general, like we're playing 20 to 30 minutes. If you had a bad take on your live set, like, well, get it next time. Like your entire time is going to be, your entire time on stage is going to be 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. Like, it was like, okay, I think you could do better. So all of a sudden you're running the song again and again and again and again until like you get something and you're like, wow, like I'm 7 songs in and I feel like my brains are going to fall out of my head. Like I never got to that point where I was like yelling so hard that I just had like a headache, and then all of a sudden my voice starts crapping out. And I remember trying to, there was a bunch of parts on Fused Together that we have like some subtle gang vocals in the backgrounds, like in songs like Nihilist and like I was trying to, like that was the last thing that we were tracking. And I remember being like, we're supposed to be like, and I was like trying to like explain it while I had no voice whatsoever. And people were like, what did you say? And it's like, like it was embarrassing. And then like that, then like, of course, like, everyone's making fun of me. And it's like, you think that shit's funny?
And that probably followed you for a little bit.
Oh yeah. No, it was rough.
So then that album went on to from what I can observe retroactively, like that album seemed to really be the album that made you guys start really gaining traction and touring like a shit ton and really starting to get out there, right?
Yeah. And it was a CD only sort of thing, and we were just hustling it. Like, it was like people would try to like email it, an old Hotmail address or something like that, and be like, where can I get it? And there's like before stores like picked up on it. Like I'd have people like take the train over to my old work, and I'd sell them like, CDs out of like, hey, meet me in my car and I'll sell you a CD. Like, it definitely started down like a road, and we probably would have gotten where we were going a little bit faster, except then we started having some lineup problems, and that kind of slowed things down. But like we definitely, it did what it was supposed to do. It was a clean sounding recording. We played a lot of shows on it. We went, we went both overseas and all over the United States. I remember like a lot of bands kept telling us that they would take us out, and that was, so we had bands that were our friends that we would say, let's do this. And it was great because you could have like a friendly conversation with somebody, and you didn't need to involve managers or booking agents or anything. You just call your friends and you say, you book 5 shows, I'll book 5 shows, the other band will book 5 shows, and there you go. Like, and we'll figure out the rest. And all of a sudden we're busy for most of a month. And then we'd have bands that would come along and say, hey, when the time comes, well, our band will take you out. And then like, we'd be like, well, hey, do you mind taking us out? We're starting to play. And we couldn't find like real bands to take us out. That lasted up until Bleeding Through eventually like pulled the pin and said, hey, like, we'll take you out to the West Coast. We'll run you around the country. We'll have a real booking agent, book the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How'd you guys meet Bleeding Through? Did they pass through Mass, or what was? No.
So we played in that 2001 tour with the Disappearing Ink. So we played some cool stuff. So we played some shows going down to Florida. We met we definitely played some like interesting shows on that. And one of the things we got to the Orpheum in Tampa, Florida. We hopped on a 18 Vision show, and yeah, so we played with 18 Visions. Brandon was playing guitar for 18 Visions, and we had like we're I think he and I, like our birthdays were like a day apart, so it was like we were like basically both like turning 21 like that day or the next day or something like that. We got talking, and he's like, "You got to hear my death metal band Bleeding Through," and it was like, okay. And then and then he hit us up, and it wasn't exactly death metal, but like in his, like compared to 18 Visions, they were doing more of the metal with the keyboards, and he came through, and we
ironically still metal with the keyboards, but yeah.
It wasn't it wasn't suffocation death metal, but it definitely it was very, very intense, like stage show, running around and doing it. And but yeah, shout out, they were the first band that came through on the "We're going to take you guys out," and then they did.
That's awesome. I mean, Bleeding Through are also, to me, like one of those bands, like for our generation, like your favorite band's favorite band. Like that sort of conversation. Like Bleeding Through is always a part of that sort of conversation, whenever it comes to metalcore, at the very least, right?
Yeah. No, they definitely they're good people, and they like I said, they're people of their words. They took us out. They've and since we've been like reformed and stuff, we've definitely been running into them at all these festivals, and I love the fact that we've like it's not a phase. We got these friends in the mix, 20, 25 years later. It's pretty awesome.
It is cool to see some of these lineups you guys have been a part on, like post-COVID, that just have these lineups of a bunch of these old fucking bands that clearly are just like a bunch of fucking friends getting together to play these shows, whether it's a fest or like the 20 years of client stuff you guys did with Number 12 and stuff like that. And I see you'd excuse them, like, there's something about it that like feels right. It's like I don't know, not that it's nostalgia, but like it's like, okay, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
What so this is, I guess, like, so Fused Together is like what, 02?
Yeah. So, 02, because we did the tour in 01. So we recorded in 01. I think it came out at the beginning of 02.
And then like, so I'd love to pick your brain on kind of the logistics of, you kind of alluded to, okay, we booked these 5 shows, you booked these 5 shows, but like all of this stuff was pre-MySpace. It was pre-internet, kind of, really, altogether, right?
Phone internet, so that's a different.
Yeah, so when I went to college, just to put it into perspective, so I started college in 1998, and I remember they were like, "Oh, we need you to make an email address." And like my parents were sort of using AOL, but like my AOL wasn't anything appropriate or anything. And like I don't even know if I had it yet. And I remember like having to go to college and like make a Hotmail address, which was even less appropriate. And then they're like, "You can't like have that as like your email for like your classes." And it's like, "Oh, you didn't tell me that." So but yeah, like it was just kind of funny when you were trying to be like, well, wait, so like, how do you do this? And so a couple bands I'm going to just shout out from back in the day. So there's a band that kind of is like, they're not, I wouldn't say that they're getting the full resurgence, but they were a predecessor of ours, but they were local, and they're called Eternal Suffering. And that kid from Sango Sugabog, Devin, he's been like doing some stuff with them and a bunch of these other bands around them. And like, I remember, so the Eternal is from Mass, and they were like going out and they were like playing, they play like Milwaukee Metal Fest or something. And it was just like, okay. And I remember being like, well, how did this happen? And they didn't do a ton of stuff, but they were like, yeah, like you got to like meet these people and whatever. And like, and they were like kind of like our big brother. And then when you realize your big brothers don't necessarily know everything, and you're like, okay, all right, so cool, good to know. Then at one point we met Cephalic Carnage, and that was where I actually met Alex. So Cephalic Carnage was out, and they had Neuraxis on tour with them. And I was handing off our cassette demo tapes to every band.
So
like, you know, I would go and like, you know, I remember handing demos off to like the Burnt by the Sun guys. And like at this point we were Red Chord with a little like cassette demo. And and I remember I would torture some of these guys. Like I would get the AOL Instant Messenger and I would bother him. Steve Goldberg from Cephalic, I would be like, Steve, like, so I met you in Cambridge, Mass at this little show and you're from Colorado. How did this happen? And then like breaking it down and like bothering them until they would, you know, impute some knowledge on me to like kind of fill in the blanks. And like, I remember Steve talking to me about like, well, yeah, you know, you got to get some phone cards. Cause like at the time, just like basic things like long distance phone calls. Like that was like, how in the world, like, all right, I'm going to call this guy or like there was, message boards were a big thing. So forget MySpace. Like you would have some Relapse Records was very much in league with like where our heads were at. They were releasing a lot of our favorite bands. You would go on a Relapse forum and they're based out of Pennsylvania. They've got all these bands. I am trying to fill a show in this location. I mean, like, so sometimes someone would give you an email address or give you a phone number. You'd be calling someone's mom's house.
Some like a random person on the forum being like, hey, all right, here's an email. Maybe you can use.
Yeah. Or you would get a phone number from somebody that like, hey, yeah, like I hear that you do shows in Kansas. I hear that you do shows in West Virginia. Oh, well, yeah, no, that's my son. I'll have him call you back. And then like, you know, he's got to get a phone card to call you at your mom's house. And hopefully you're still there.
He's like, this is a long distance number. Fuck this guy.
Oh yeah. Long distance was a pain, but I remember Cephalic Carnage was one of those bands that kind of like broke it down. And, they were like on this weird level because like I think that they might have had somebody that was like helping them out with like some of the booking, but they also had done a ton of it themselves. And I got a lot of these like sort of stories when I was handing off these demos to bands like Origin or like just basically the early Relapse stuff. And I remember, so like at the time, Alex is drumming in Neuraxis and I'm passing off the demo to everybody. And I remember like talking to Alex like after the fact, and he's like, "Oh, you know, I got this other band that like, you know, might be like more up your alley." And you know, eventually, like he was saying, like, "Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of the demo, and like now we're kind of, I think we're kind of going in that direction." And like it's amazing that you would just make these, you know, these friendships through like I handed you a tape, it's got my mom's phone number on it and an email address at AOL, and maybe you're going to add me on. I used to also torture one of the other bands to shout out in the early days, which was also an influence on me in the early was Shadows Fall. Phil Labonte was singing in Shadows Fall originally, and I remember I went to see Pantera, White Zombie. It was like Deftones and AC was the opener, and Shadows Fall was like going around handing out their 2-song demo with Phil singing, and that was like 96 or 97. And like I remember they had an AOL address in there, and then years later I was like bugging Matt from Shadows Fall all the time, like asking him all these like stupid questions, like, "Hey, I want to play Western Mass too. Do you want to come play at YMCA?" Like, you know, I used to torture everybody all the time with like just punish people with like all these dumb questions on like basically how to be a band and you know, you got different levels of you know, feedback and cooperation. It was interesting because like in the early days, one of the other breakthroughs that we kind of had was I was when I was in college, I was working as a music director at like the college like radio station, and that put me in touch with a lot of record labels. And it was like, I'm sure everyone was bothering them of, "Oh, I have a band and you work for Metal Blade." And I'm sure that they got inundated with like a ton of like just crap. And it worked out kind of well because like I have this like professional looking demo with like unassuming sort of like whatever cover, and then I got somebody on the other end to like actually go and like listen to it. And it worked out that we started like sparking interest where it was like, wait, I was expecting this to be like bad. And then it was good. It's like, well, thank you. I'm glad that it wasn't bad. but some of these, like, especially like the labels that were far away, started touching base with us, like Metal Blade, Necropolis, or Death Vomit Records, like was one of the early adopters that, you know, that they were talking to us about it. And you know, eventually Relapse was like on the fence, but
yeah, because you guys ended up signing a Fuse Together came out. It was it on Metal Blade?
No, Fuse Together was on was originally RoboDog, and then RoboDog turned into Robotic Empire.
Oh, okay.
So we did that. That was very like DIY sort of. Like,
that was like
they definitely were doing their thing. Yeah. But like we had some interesting times in that period, because like Robotic Empire, I know they've kind of like grown and done something a little bit different over time, and they're not doing as much these days, but they're a cool label. The earliest part of, like, we were label mates with Circle of Dead Children, is a band that I don't think gets brought up as much anymore. Creation is Crucifixion was sort of in the mix over there. Pig Destroyer was reissuing like the stuff that became 38 Counts of Battery, the Knob Split, like that was all on Robotic. And like we started playing with Pig Destroyer and Circle of Dead Children like really early on, and just it was cool, like, you know, to the how do you get on the road thing. Well, if you have a label mate in, you know, like Circle of Dead Children, and they're from Pittsburgh, like, hey, Circle of Dead Children, can you help us out? And we'll here's a local kid that might be able to help you on the show.
Yeah. So you start kind of off of the record, you start talking to labels and stuff, because I feel like you guys ultimately ended up with, I'm not crazy, right? Like Metal Blade is afterwards so you guys kind of end up signing pretty early in your guys's like career with Metal Blade afterwards, right? You're talking about, okay, you're doing the college radio station, you're able to get in contact with these labels, there's some interest and stuff like that. Like what kind of leads to eventually Metal Blade like being a thing for you guys?
Yeah, so we were talking to everybody, and we were still like, it was nice all of a sudden that we went from, okay, we knew one label with Robotic, and they were cool about it, and then all of a sudden we had a bunch of labels that were kind of going back and forth with us, and there was a few that were like in the mix, and then ultimately it was in 04. Like 03, we were talking to Metal Blade. 04, we signed with Metal Blade, but then we were having a hard time with our lineup because we went to Europe at the end of 03, and then we came back and we lost like our bass player and Mike J and our drummer. So like it just really set us back. And like when you go from like, oh man, like we can play anything, and now you're gonna find another drummer that can play all of that guy's stuff. Yeah, and that was difficult. Like, so we went through a phase where
too, like around those years, let's be honest, like it's even harder. Like we're at the beginning of like playing faster and stuff. Like it's difficult right now for a lot of bands to find like a good drummer. So imagine back then, you know, when Deathcore wasn't even something. So
yeah. So I mean, we played with some really awesome people. During that time frame, but like it wasn't, you know, like it didn't pan out necessarily either in like stylistic of the style of playing or like in the personalities. Like the kid from Deadwater Drowning played with us for a little bit, and it didn't pan out. John Longstreth from Origin and Gorguts and stuff. He's an amazing drummer. Things didn't pan out. I remember at one point I was trying to get Chris Penny from Dillinger Escape Plan's first album to fill in. He was really cool about it, and then Dillinger was just so busy, and then he did the Coheed and Cambria thing for a minute, and it was just like, okay, well. And I was bothering Dave Whitty in those days because like I met him through Burnt by the Sun, and you know he was just way too busy, but it wasn't a no.
They're always busy, dude.
Yeah, but and then eventually we got Brad, and that allowed us to finally like lock in and focus on doing that first Metal Blade record from 05.
So okay, so I guess then clients for sure. Like I discovered the band through clients. That's kind of like around the time I was getting into heavier music in general, and was just like one of those. The TLDR is I was sprung with a shit ton of different heavy bands, from death metal to deathcore to anything kind of in between. And Clients was in there. That album was a part of that mix. So for me personally, special place in my heart, just because that was kind of my beginnings of getting into heavier stuff. But I think it is undeniable that that album is I don't know. There's like something clicked with that album. There was like to me it feels like a lightning in a bottle kind of moment for the band. Can you kind of talk to us about maybe like you just mentioned there's change in personnel and all this stuff, and now there's Metal Blade that's in the mix too, and then obviously you guys are going to a better studio. You guys probably have, I assume, more time in a studio as well. Like, can you kind of walk us through a little bit of that whole process kind of leading to Clients?
Sure. So when we did Fuse Together, that was a compilation of basically everything. It was almost like we had every demo from every era of, the band from 1999 all the way up to, when we got to record it and like, that was just everything that we had. It wasn't like, this is intended to be an album. It was like, all right, we got to a point where we were like, we don't have to use the Ictus stuff anymore. We're kind of writing enough songs, but it was like, we barely had enough songs. So when we got to the point of doing Clients, it was like we had a couple songs that we had written with Mike J. So the first two were Fixation on Plastics and Upper Decker, which sounded drastically different with Mike J than when we ended up with Brad. And Brad is a guy that he was in a local like black metal band, and we'd kind of cross paths with him like during the Ictus Red Chord like early on days, and we really weren't thinking of him as being our drummer until he eventually tried out, and he kind of like really, we realized he could just play like everything. And
he just didn't show it off in the prior band.
No, he was a super fast like blaster, and they just never slowed down. So it was, he also painted his face or something, I think, too. So it just wasn't what we were going for, and it was definitely impressive, and he was really young when we first saw him. But so when we got into when we finally said, all right, well, we're not touring anymore, now we're writing, we have all of our members, and now we can write. It was like the first time that we actually could like sit down and like really focus, and like we need to write a record. So Clients was like the first time that we like sort of had like a cohesive like theme, and it was like, we are writing an album. We're trying to do this. And it was a little bit more organized in that respect, because we were like, we're not going to go back out on the road and start playing shows until we got to get this done. So we have to get this done.
And then can you kind of talk to us about the recording of it? Because still to this day, but especially at the time, pretty iconic duo to be producing, mixing, mastering that record. That record sounds fucking phenomenal, in my opinion.
That
record would drop today, and it's truly a timeless sounding.
People still
sounding
talk
album.
about it, yeah.
Yeah, so Zeus out at Planet Z there, he had a really awesome. He has a really awesome ear. He's amazing, and and he was recording bands like really like elevating bands like Hatebreed and a bunch of these other New England area bands, and he we were like, okay, so we don't want it to be we want it to be a technical band, but we want it to be clean and heavy and keep all of the things that we like about the Zeus recordings, but presenting like presenting a death metal record. And it was awesome to be like, all right, we're gonna have 2 weeks in the studio instead, and
which is crazy to say. Even 2 weeks is like nothing. In
things, right? Oh, I mean, but we came in ready to rock. So before we walked out there, I mean, there was certain things that were like, all right, we'll experiment with this a little bit, but we had actually had every one of our songs, like, you know, demoed in some capacity. You know, it might have just been like an 8-track type of thing, but the lyrics didn't change too much from like when we did the demo to when we went into the studio. So it's nice it's very seldom that I feel like you walk in and you're just like, bang, we have the entire album done and ready to roll. Now, he definitely has a great ear, and he has a great input, and he's going to say, you know, hey, yeah, maybe you should try this or that. But the album itself didn't, like, the actual, like, music on the album didn't really change that much. And the other thing that really worked for me was when we went to New Alliance, I had to use a pop screen, and it wasn't a handheld situation. So it was just like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I can hold the mic.
How do I stand?
Yeah. So when I went to Zeus's, he's like, yeah, why aren't you using an SM7B? And like, yeah, like that's a great metal mic. And that was a game changer for me, because it was like, that's what I've used on pretty much every other Red Chord album since. I mean, it's the same one. Like, I got a little home studio. It's probably one of the same things that you guys are using over there, but it's amazing because you can just get right up on it, and it feels like when you're playing live. And it's got enough, it's got enough like compression or whatever. I'm not an audiophile by any means, but it is like the metal recording mic.
So you're talking. It's kind of funny because you talked about, you know, blowing your voice from going too crazy on the stationary mic, but now you're presented with the option of having this microphone in your hand and kind of doing it like it's live. And so I'm assuming maybe even moving more than on the last record while recording, right?
I mean, I at that point, you start realizing how sensitive a process it is. So you're not like rocking out. Like, I don't know what the hell was going through my head when I was, like a 20-year-old, like being like, all right, yeah, just this is the part I freak out. Like, it's like you start realizing like, all right, well, no, you're going to be tossing and moving and whatever it is, and the mic's going to be loose, and you're going to catch weird little noises on it. Like, just all the stupid shit. And I think the engineers realized that with the pop screen, like, no, don't let the singer touch the mic, because then you might screw something up. Zeus was like, no, just don't do anything stupid.
Just don't overdo it.
Yeah. And but I mean, it was also like, okay, we did 3 songs today. Maybe just, you know, go back, have some tea, get a night's sleep, and we'll come back and you know, it wasn't like super relaxed where, you know, it wasn't like we were doing like a song a day. I think we did all the vocal tracking in like 2 days, but we're talking fused together doing 9 or 10 songs.
Half a day, not even for the whole.
Yeah. Like it was like doing all of the vocals in like 3 hours. Just, you know, that was not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend it.
So clients ends up becoming this iconic record that Clients is, I mean, objectively the record that really put you guys on the map, right? Like that really pushed the band into the stratosphere. So I'm curious, especially maybe like when the album dropped, like did it take a bit for it to pick up? Was there kind of like an immediate kind of like, oh, this new Metal Blade band, there's this new album and it's popping off already? Was it through touring later?
So,
like how do you remember kind of?
Yeah, so we were a workhorse with Fused Together, and we definitely we did a lot of grinding to get to that point. However, I think that there's something like when you go and you develop the like, hey, I'm going to go to the merch table, and it's kind of like when you go to a Converge show and Jake Bannon sells you a shirt, and like you've done that, and like you saw them in '98 and '99 and 2000, and the same guy is there every time, and he's doing that. I think like there is something to that where very hands-on, very attached, very like. So we had like, at this point, we've already run around the country and in other countries in that early part of Fuse Together, that you've now like developed friends. Like it's not about being a fan or anything. You have like, these are your friends, these are your peers, these are people that are supporting you on a really basic level. They've let you stay at their house. They know that you're good people because you've interacted with them on some level. And like there's nothing more organic than that, where I go to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I play in front of 9 people, and I go back and I play in front of 18 people, and I go back and I play. Like there's something about that repetition where somebody becomes a lot more attached to you, because now like they're invested at that stage. And it's not about like, oh, I saw him at Warped Tour or whatever it is. Like I need to go out and I need to support Guy, because this is the first album that they're doing on that, or I need to support Mike or Greg or whatever. We developed a very good reputation with people, and I think that we had a good foundation. I remember it charted on like Billboard, like I think it did like 4,000 copies in the first week, which is amazing because
crazy numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's other opportunities that we had never had before on the Fuse Together stuff. Like we were in the mix on like Headbangers Ball, like on MTV2. We suddenly had a real video, and Metal Blade was very good about allowing us to do a couple different videos and stuff. Like
y'all did like 5 on that record.
Yeah, so it was a combination of like Metal Blade was cool about it. We were getting played through outlets like Fuse and MTV, and and then on top of it, like we had some awesome people like Dave Brodsky from My Good Eye. He records a lot of videos right now. I think he does some of the Whitechapel stuff and Clutch and Guar and all this. He became our friend after doing a couple of videos with us. He was like, okay, we don't really have much of a budget anymore, but we want to do something. Okay, let's make it happen. And the fact that we were able to do some of that, and then there was other things that we did, like goofy stuff. Like there's a Blue Line Cretin video that we kind of shot on our own budget. Like I don't think Metal Blade was funding that one, but like they were able to solicit it like after the fact.
Get it out there at the very least. Yeah.
We like had this video of like this dude beating us up while we were eating sandwiches in a park.
Is there is there a part of MySpace or the like social media or internet being more prevalent that kind of plays into? Because it's kind of around that time when clients came out that, MySpace started being more of a thing and stuff like that.
So I don't think that the internet hurt us necessarily, but we also weren't really focused on it, and we weren't having the same explosion. Like we were still, I don't know, man, like I'm a fossil at this point, and we've never been like super great at being like, oh, cool, this stuff just happened on the internet for us. In my head, there was nothing like you go to some place, you play, you come back, there's a little bit better, you come back again, you come back with a different style of tour. So I never really thought of like, you were going to put the cart before the horse, and like the internet's going to do all this work for us. Like, so I was kind of old school in that respect. We're just going to hit the road.
But I only asked because some bands weren't even trying to do it, and they just fucking blew up. Like that's just like how volatile it kind of was at that time.
So there was some of these other sites like mp3.com and HXC, MP3. Yeah, like that we started having some like early success, like where somebody would be like, hey, I got your album I got your demo off of this. I was like, really? Like, and you're from Alaska? Like that's when you start realizing like, okay, there's something to this, but we didn't have the same like boom as like one of the bands that really flipped the script a little bit was like Job for a Cowboy, which we eventually poached our drummer from
you
like
guys
that.
did a decent amount of touring with those guys too, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, so like we definitely played some shows with them, And I was kind of rubbing elbows with them with the label and stuff because, like, remember From a Second Story Window did like this early tour with them, and it was From a Second Story Window was like at the top of the bill, and they took out, I think, like Cattle Decap, Misery Index, like Animosity, and Job for a Cowboy, and like it just did.
That's crazy.
It was like Job for a Cowboy was like kind of like middle rung of the bill, and at that point, like the writing was on the wall where it was like they were just blowing up. It's very similar to like where all of a sudden you're like, where are these kids coming from? Because I don't think that they're here to see us. type of thing. But like, I think it's good because it, if you're getting like Lorna Shore is like one of those bands right now, and it's like if you're getting the young middle school and high school kids to get into these scratchy logo bands, then that's good for any band.
Yeah, the kids are going to be all right if that's what's going on, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, at least in my experience, it's kind of been that you get a lot of people that their musical interest keeps getting more underground as opposed to, well, I started out listening to Peeling Flesh and now I'm really into Christina Aguilera. Like, it's, I'm sure there's somebody that's eventually like they're going to start out in one thing and then they're going to grow out of it. But for the most part, you definitely have a certain population that's going to just keep seeking out more and more stuff. In that, you're at least open to the idea of like listening to heavy stuff.
Right. Cause I just find it fascinating too. Cause you mentioned like, okay, like going out to shows and that's how you gain traction on all these things. But like simultaneously you're starting Black Market, right? Which I know wasn't necessarily like from the get-go a thing that was like a label that's like there for promotion or whatever. It was more of a, hey, let's do these different services, screen printing, whatever. Let's do like these things for people, right? But like that was like, I'm assuming there was some part of that wasn't just word of mouth or, you're not physically going to shows for these guys, for these bands that are under this label, under this banner, right? Like how does that work back then to help bands out?
Yeah, so I went to college for public relations, and I remember I wanted to, like, I really liked the idea of like doing marketing and writing press releases and things of that nature. And I remember trying to like, running a little website and doing reviews and kind of like what you guys are doing with the podcast now, where everything was about making a zine and trying to promote bands that you like. And it wasn't video and stuff yet, but it was just like, okay, I can put this in a photocopy and sell it or hand it out. And hopefully people will get into it. Well, I started trying to help bands get onto labels. And when I got into the like crossover type bands, I started having no luck whatsoever because a lot of the labels wanted nothing to, they didn't know how to market it and they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So you either, if Relapse bit, that'd be a great home for all these. But when you started getting into like, okay, well, Relapse has too much going on or they're not there yet.
You're trying to sell them your 20th band.
Yeah. So I remember like when I started being like, well, what could I want to help these bands. I want to help my friends. And then I just, at one point I remember saying like, if I ever had a label, like I would put out Backstabbers Incorporated. Like I would love to do that. And I remember people were still handing me demos just because they saw Red Chord was always on the road. We were starting to play shows and, hey, I really want you to hear this. And I remember thinking like, okay, Backstabbers is this really amazing sounding album. And Founded Hanging doesn't like, they're out there doing their thing, and Deadwater Drowning. Like they were the ones that like really kind of put me over the edge. And I was like, okay, I'll just put these three out. And then it turned into From a Second Story Window and Psyopus. And then suddenly people started like seeing Black Market as like, okay, I'm like an alternative to like, yeah, I'm not like a little one man bedroom label at that point. But, people started seeing me as like one of these, like, okay, people are trusting my taste and going and seeking the stuff out. and it starts giving bands like a little bit of like a launching pad.
I was seeing on the, well, I always do the little Wayback Machine rounds before these, and I was seeing a bunch of the for many years the big text in the Red Chord MySpace page saying, "Do not message us about black market activities stuff. Here's an email for Guy." You know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming people that they didn't even know where to reach out. They would reach out to the Red Chords page to try and get a hold of you and shit.
Yeah, there was a moment where it gets a little overwhelming. I mean, the funny thing was there was a point where I was so backlogged and I was like living with my parents, and I just remember I had so many demos like coming in. And I was just like inundated. Like my parents would just take my mail and like throw it into my bedroom. I come home from a tour and it was like I like could barely walk in because I just had all these boxes of stuff. And like, but I had like, I remember that by the time I got to it, I'm pretty sure that the bands had already like signed. But I had like We Came as Romans and August Burns Red and like all these like other real bands, and I'm like, maybe I should just write it back. Be like, yeah, let's do the deal. Like, yeah, go screw you, dude. Like you snooze, you lose. Like, but
hey, some of those demos would probably be worth a pretty penny today.
I probably have some of them, but yeah, I'd have to dig through some piles.
It could have started a museum or something. What I mean, while we're kind of talking black market activities, I was always kind of amazed by the Lamb of God vinyl. Like, what was that? We're kind of skipping in time here, but
sure.
What was that about? Like, how'd that kind of come together?
So originally, black market was me, Adam from the Red Chord that was doing the art guy, the art stuff, and Mike from Premonitions of War. Mike had a screen printing company, and he was one of the early leg ups that Black Market had was that Mike was working at a distributor called Lumberjack, and he was definitely more like in the loop with a lot of a lot of like these different labels, and he like would talk to somebody, and then he'd be like, "Hey, you got to talk to Guy about doing something." And at some point, like he was like, "Hey, what do you think about like pitching Prosthetic on doing like a piece of vinyl for like Lamb of God?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "We should do a picture disc." And it was like, okay. Well, like I've since like kind of been like, you know what, you probably don't want to do a picture disc. It's not the best thing. But it was like, okay, cool. So I remember like so that As the Palaces Burned album, we did a picture disc, and picture disc with the artwork on it looks nice. And then we decided that Adam had this idea that like we could do like a die cut inlay, and they have this like steer head, like steer skull that's like in the layout. Yeah. So I remember I ordered a steer skull off of eBay, and then we took a photo of it, and then Adam like cropped it out, and then like our whole like layout was just like the die cut like steer skull. And then like but Prosthetic was down, and then I didn't talk directly with the band until later about it, because I just went through Prosthetic at the time. And then we ended up on Sounds of the Underground with Lamb of God in 2005, but we'd already been like kind of rubbing elbows with them and playing like random little holes in the wall. Like some of those early shows, like we're us and Killswitch in front of 75 people at some little bar in Boston. Us and Lamb of God probably in front of 100 people in some little bar in Connecticut. Like lots of stuff like that was kind of happening at the time. There you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of like a fascinating kind of crossover to happen, because it was kind of also like outside of what the style or whatever, like kind of what you guys were covering in general, right? And kind of felt like obviously Lamb of God is in like a different place now than they were then, but like that was the album as far as I'm concerned,
Oh yeah, I mean, I thought New American Gospel was awesome, and then the As the Palaces Burn is like when they really started sort of taking off. And I've like actually I'd interviewed Randy for like one of my college radio shows and like my old like website and stuff, like going back to when they had just turned from like Burn the Priest into that. And,
that's crazy, man.
I mean, they definitely like they're a band. It's awesome that they've kept going, and I know that it's kind of like an outlier now, but like in my head, Lamb of God was still sort of like in that metalcore scene. It like they were the level up from from like what we were kind of dealing with, but it wouldn't have been absurd for my band or half of the black market bands to like open up for them if the opportunity was there.
Yeah. I mean, dude, they're like, I don't know if they just finished or they're currently still doing, but the headline tour they just did was like a arena tour with Sangwa opening the tour, and I'm just like fucking playing the hockey arena here. Like we have two hockey arenas. We have the small ass one for like the juniors, and then we got the big boy one for the Habs. And like they're playing like they're bringing the slam band on to fucking these like huge ass things. And all right, that's I don't know, that's badass, man. That's like everything you'd want in like a band of that stature, right?
No, I mean it's cool. Like they've kind of done everything, and at this stage, I like the fact that they could do whatever they want, and it's not like they're trying to do some like I mean. Whatever they went out with Pantera not too long ago. That's awesome. But given the opportunity to do whatever they want, they take out Sangwa and Fit for an Autopsy. Like, amazing.
Says a lot.
Good for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like they were a lot of the shows that we were playing with them early on were pretty small and pretty intimate, and they were doing like the circle of these Killswitch and Unearth type bands. And even that 05 tour, that Sounds of the Underground, like that was a pretty amazing lineup. We were the odd man out doing the death metal thing.
Dude, that lineup is fucking insane to look back on.
Yeah. Well, I guess Opeth was probably the odd man out, but it was amazing. They had like a 25-minute set. They were playing like 3 songs.
Yeah, sure. that checks out.
Yeah.
That's the type of band that can't ask for an encore.
Yeah, but Lamb of God was like way up the bill at that time.
Yeah. But it's just, it was also just like such a long, like some of those festival tours back then were just, it was like 30 bands, fuck it. It's just like these massive list of bands. And like, it's not like you're getting like, 20 bands in the same genre on a bill, right? And it's like everything in between, different genres, from massive band to smaller bands. I don't know, man. That shit was fucking.
Well, Sounds of the Underground, I felt was that was an interesting point, and like that was something that was missing from the Fused Together days. Like we hit the ground running. Clients is coming out, and we start playing. We had a little bit of like our own type of shows, and then we had Sounds of the Underground on the horizon, and it was like, okay, wow, like we're. We played like New England Metal Hardcore Fest.
That's one day. Yeah.
It was a couple days. I think that it might have been 2 days at the time, but it was
But I mean, it's not a tour. It's it's a one and done for you guys.
Yeah. And it's like very seldom. Like the Hellfest existed, Furnace Fest existed. And at that point, like you're dealing with like there's a million bands. Like it's just nonstop music for the entire day. Whereas like Sounds of the Underground, it was a very curated, very organized, like, the doors are going to open at like, noon or 2 or whatever it is. It was very like elite. And the fact that you're being, kind of put out there in the same breath as like the biggest names in the industry, that did some huge stuff for us. And then the following summer, we got to be a part of Ozzfest.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Another kind of crazy lineup too, right?
Yeah, and again, that was like Ozzfest was something where, my early days of like going to concerts and stuff, like I went to some of those as like a high school kid, and the fact that it's like, okay, I can play as many busy shows with, say Converge or something like, and that's wow, cool. You played to hundreds of people and whatever. And when I say that out loud to at the family reunion, so you're in the band? Yeah, we just played with Converge and this. Like nobody's gonna know. But when it's like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna be out with Ozzy Osbourne. Like it's something like it becomes like a little validating in terms of like I'm more proud in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't deny it at that point, kind of thing.
Yeah, like the mission of the band was to do certain things that were like on this underground level, but that was like very like, okay, I can now say this out loud and people would recognize, yeah, my band was on MTV too. We have videos. They stream on TV. They play on TV. Like, yeah, I played with Zakk Wylde and Ozzy Osbourne. Like, okay.
You could tell that to like a parent or somebody completely outside the scene. They would be like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, that was like the first show that like my parents came outside of like in high school or something like that. Like that was the first show that like, yeah, because everything to that point was, what are you doing? Shouldn't you be like being a grown up? And yeah, Mom, sure, okay. and then it's like oh yeah, hey, no, just come put your name on the guest list. I'll come get you. And like you like, wait, this is what you've been doing? Oh yeah, all the tours.
Right,
like
yeah, the whole time, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like forget like the sleeping on the side of the road and sleeping behind Walmarts and stuff like that, and getting kicked out of everywhere, living like a homeless person. But
it goes from like, after that, they're like, oh, my son's playing music and they did this and going like, it's kind of like legit after doing something like that almost.
Yeah.
Did those tours do well for you guys? Like reception or new fans or like any of that sort of thing? Because that's always kind of the flip side of those festivals, right? Like not everyone's going to enjoy everything, but you are being put in front of a shit ton of people.
Yes. So the problem with certain tours is that like there's a certain like behind the scenes. So yeah, short answer, yes, absolutely. Those tours are amazing. You get the bragging rights at the Easter time or whatever it is. There's nothing quite like that where you suddenly are able to like get that little degree of recognition to kind of keep your family like in your corner. It's more like the dollar for dollar stuff where the old school marketing is coming out of a budget and is being recouped against the boring stuff, against royalties and how that pans out. Are you going to sell, especially at that stage where the CD market is not what it used to be, and like, or just the idea of like people supporting and buying music is not as prevalent as it was in like the place and time in like the 80s and the 90s. If you did Ozzfest in 1995 and you did it, you're going to see, okay, we sold X amount of tens of thousands of additional things.
Yeah.
Versus when we did it in 06 and people are starting to think like, well, whether it's like starting to be more conservative with their money or, by the tail end of the band, it was like, wait, why would I buy a CD?
Oh, get it off LimeWire. You'll fucking anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, but like we say like in 08 when we did the Mayhem Festival where it was not necessarily the same level of like marketing and like that was incredible. Like similar tour, just less financial obligations that go into it. But like to this day, we still get people that I found out about you on Ozzfest.
That's what I was going to bring up because you're talking since the very beginning. Like, okay, well, we just played this place and now we've got these new people. Granted, you're probably not shaking every one of these people's hands as opposed to playing a little dingy bar with 50 people watching. But it's still like, obvious. Clearly, the next time you roll up through these cities, there's got to be more people, right?
Yeah, I mean, more people, and it's a different type of thing where. They're not thinking of you in terms of like, oh, this is Guy's band. Like it's like you almost like they would find it weird. Like, wait, why don't you have people at the table like doing this? Well, because I can't afford it is the short version. but but yeah, it was just like you're carrying on like a DIY hardcore band, and you're trying to like educate somebody who found out about you through like the festival environment.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, well,
you become like a gateway band of a sort via the festival, right?
Yeah.
I have like kind of a specific question here.
Sure.
This needs to be clarified. I need to know if this is true. You guys went on tour in Europe in June of 2005. And I read something about Bring Me the Horizon going on their first tour, but in actuality, it wasn't really them being on the tour, but they messaged every single one of the promoters for the tour that you guys were doing, so they just ended up on every single show of your tour.
So
is that a thing?
Yes, sort of. I don't think it was. I don't think it was that. So we had a woman that was booking our tour at the time, and her name is Chrissy. She had a company called Positive Nuisance, and like going into that, like Positive Nuisance was like, "Hey, we got these two bands that want to play some of your shows over there. There's not a ton of money to go around, but we think it'd be worth like having them if you're interested." Yeah, well, what are they called? Architects and Bring Me the Horizon. Okay.
Two small bands.
Yeah. So, but it's like, so like I want to say that if memory serves, like I think like their parents might have been driving them to the shows and all that.
One of the dude's parents was like their manager or whatever at the time.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny. Like I saw in the interview that you guys did with Alex, like he was talking about the Little Rock show and stuff. So at the time, I remember like talking to them and just being like they were really they're really sweet guys, like both bands, and they were super excited to play and we could already see the writing on the wall where it was like, okay, there's a bunch of kids here that are young. Now, I mean, it's relative because the whole shows might have like 100 people or something, 100 or 200, like when you get into like, or whatever, however many people fit in like the Camden Underworld or whatever. I think that we played with them north of London, like in some of these other little places.
Okay.
But yeah, they 100%, they played a couple of the shows, and the crazy combination of Red Chord, Architects, and Bring Me the Horizon all the same show for $8 or eight quid.
Yeah. And this is like Bring Me's like, and basically their first shows. This is like their early material, which was way more chaotic, to be fair, too. Like even prior to like the first album.
Yeah, and I remember they were talking to me. They were excited. They were already talking to me about From a Second Story Window. I think that they really liked From a Second Story Window, and they were like, "Oh, you like know those guys in real life?" And it's like, yeah. and now it's funny when you get like a band on that, like, because they're both those bands are like legitimately like rock stars and stuff.
Dude, this weekend I just went and saw Bring Me the Horizon's show recording in the movie theater. That's the kind of band they are now. Yeah,
I like honestly, I haven't kept. I didn't really keep in touch with either of those bands, and I mean, hey, listen, if either of those bands watch this and they want to do something again, just remember we gave you your start.
We just want a little bit of credit if this is the interview that makes it happen.
Yeah, but no, but either way, like they both left a really good impression, and the writing was on the wall for both those bands. They were very good people, and they definitely seemed like people were already excited about them, and it's definitely cool. And it's really amazing because like I remember like there's a few bands like that where like you meet them early on and then they just skyrocket. I remember like helping at one point. I remember like helping A Day to Remember get a booking agent or something.
That's crazy.
And just because like they were friends of friends or something, and biggest band in the world. They're sweethearts. They're I did that little cameo in their All I Want video.
That's the thing you've done with the most views, probably.
Yeah. Like they sent like a camera guy out to the show, and I think it was more for like we were on tour with the Acacia Strain, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have both of you guys do this."
All right, because Vincent is in it too. Yeah. He's like he's like in the trailer, and you're like in an alley. Like it's just like back of a venue type thing.
But yeah, I mean, like the fact, like all these bands are still out there and they're still working and they're still going. And I wish them nothing but the best. And you know, these bands haven't stopped. Like,
yeah,
I mean, my like touring career kind of went off a cliff in, 2011 or something like that. And like, yeah, we did some stuff after, but we never went back and like hit the road full bore ever again. But, it's crazy because a lot of these like new bands have just been on the road from, like Bring Me the Horizon. They've been busy since 05, 06, whatever.
Right. Like, yeah. They just literally have never stopped.
Yeah. I mean, that's like remarkable because like I spent the bulk of my 20s on the road, not, I didn't spend 2 decades on the road.
Yeah.
Must have been a trip though to witness all of that, because you said how it wasn't the beginning of the 2000s, and then you probably saw like the whole MySpace thing, and we're talking about like Job for a Cowboy and stuff like that. So it's kind of a trip to think that you witness all of these like different steps. That after a while, Deathcore was a thing, and you see these bands like blowing up. It must be a trip. I think we had like a similar conversation with Alex from Despise Icon, but it must be pretty insane to see that basically you're part of the wave that kind of kickstarted all of that, right?
Well, I mean, like one of the things I like about your podcast is that you guys are very positive and very excited, and like a lot of this seems to be like the lore of what happened from then. I mean, it was chaos and everyone was broke, and it was there was definitely like a very low ceiling in terms of what you could walk into being in a metal hardcore band and what that meant. And there was a couple bands that really broke out of that. And, we never experienced quite the same success as like some of these bands like that are popping off now. But we also we made it to the level above like where most of these bands ever get to go, and we did a lot of the cool stuff that. But yeah, I mean it's definitely pretty incredible to kind of watch that. One of the bands that we used to rub that we used to kind of like I did shows with like Mastodon early on in front of like 40 people, and remember that was like how is this band gonna like blow up? And then like they're incredible. Don't get me wrong. I remember like watching them play to nobody in the Fused Together era and hearing that like they were going to be the next big thing. And it was like, well, yeah, but they're so niche, like niche, like they're so like,
it's like, there's no way, right? Like that this would become like mainstream,
But yeah, like, but they like blew the doors off anything. They were unignorable. Like we played a show at CBGB's and it was Red Chord opening, Mastodon, Avenged Sevenfold, and then some new metal band called 5.0 as a headliner. And like CBGB's holds like 300 people. There was probably like 150, if that. And I just remember thinking like, okay, like, Avenged Sevenfold was still kind of like a metalcore band at that point. Like you weren't thinking like of just like, so then we run into Avenged Sevenfold on like Ozzfest, and now like they got singles and they're on the big stage, and it's like, what just happened? And and you get Mastodon, like again, they're playing the big stage, but there's like, are they digestible to the point that they're really gonna like blow up? Then they just kept going. Like, and now you've got bands like Gojira that exist, and they exist in this like, how the hell did this happen that they're way up at the top of the food chain like that? But good for them.
Yeah, it is kind of, I don't know if it's like an acceptance, like I don't know what it, because it's kind of it's of the times, right? There's like I think like Mastodon, to your point, wouldn't have been like a massive fucking band to the point that they are now like 30 years ago. Like I think we maybe as music listeners or as a society, we're just more ready for that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it just took the band to do it the right way for it to actually explode that way. But I think, you know, in 2026 at this point, there's so many bands that have, I don't know, from going viral or just being good and doing their thing and fucking exploding, have like expanded the reach of what metal can be. Like Lorna Shore being the biggest thing right now is mind-boggling to me.
Sure.
Because of how fucking extreme it is, right? There's no way that makes sense, right?
A few examples like that, even Knock Loose, you know, what is happening? Like that event like that can have that level of exposure.
Sure.
So that's, to your point, Dom, I don't think back in the days people were ready for something like that, to be like that exposed, and I know it's a different thing, but I think it
I mean, even like, you know, we took Black Dahlia on like an early tour, and like those guys have since taken us and, you know, whatever out a couple times now, and like it was amazing that watching them kind of be like, okay, they're this kind of death metal band with like a lot of the you know, the Swedish influence and doing what they're doing. And then like they just kept growing and growing and growing. And like there was like these certain things of like, okay, well, Black Dahlia's out supporting, you know, Nile and King Diamond, and Black Dahlia's out, like, you know, your goal is to be as big as like, you know, say At the Gates or something.
Yeah.
And then till like when they landed that tour with like Lorna Shore now, and it's just like, okay, it's gotten to the point where you're not trying to support these bands that are like, the genre is so big that you're actually like able to get new people in your own genre. Like the fact that like Lorna Shore has had as much success as they have is incredible.
Right. Like as opposed to having to have, let's say, like an Ozzfest be the entryway for a heavier band via like Opeth or like, you know, Avenged Sevenfold being at the top and bringing people in.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, Black Dahlia has absolutely put in the work just as much. They're one of those same bands that's gone through all of they've gone through more than anybody, but they never really stopped. They've just kept going and going and going. And it's amazing because like they're like both the pioneer of that, and now they're kind of like, all right, you're benefiting from the growth of that, and you know, good for Lorna Shore for you know, for everything that's going on with them, and good for taking out cool, you know, very credible bands that have been there since the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's some bands like that are like, like I know like a band like Lorna Shore finds it weird to bring out a band like Black Dahlia Murder, right? Because they're like the band for them, you know, like you're like inviting your idols to open for your band, like that
That's
like
insane.
like a weird thing, right? But I know they feel like that, like for sure.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of a similar thing to, you know, we were talking about Bleeding True earlier. You know, they're like, oh, they actually not respected their words, but you know what I'm saying? Like they were just like, hey, you guys want to go on tour. I know it's not to the same extent, but I feel like a lot of those bands, again, to your point, like Lorna Shore, they're just like stoked to be able to be in a position like that. And just, they remember back when they were opening for those bands, I'm sure. And they're like, hey, it's kind of their way of just being like, come with us now, you know. Like,
No, it's cool.
So, super wholesome.
All right, I got two small things for you because we are running long on time here, so I'll make this quick. I have Josh Goddard from ex Suicide Silence saying he's posing a question here. He's saying, does he recall lecturing Mitch Lucker at Chain Reaction regarding safe moshing circa 0405?
I don't remember that specifically. I busted Mitch's chops on a lot of other stuff. I don't remember. I don't remember that in particular.
So what would you bust his chops on about?
Oh, just everything else. Like they were on the Mayhem tour with us, and just relentless teasing. of anything. Like just if you were going to torture your like little brother over something, just everything and anything.
They were the punching bag.
Yeah, he got it a little bit. Like I used to like imitate his stage moves and stuff like that. All in good fun, and he didn't get it anywhere near as bad as other people. So I always liked Mitch. I can't remember if in 04 we were having, if memory serves, it was either 03 or 04. We were on a particularly disturbing run. We were out with 6 Feet Under at one point.
Mm-hmm. This is 04,
and it was. Yeah, and it was like Bury Your Dead and 6 Feet Under and like On Broken Wings was on part of it. Yeah. And like when I say like that was like it was a turnoff on the hard moshing because every day was just like a bloodbath with the crowds coming together and just people getting the snot kicked out of them to the point where we couldn't get through sets without people like having to stop and people like getting really hurt. So unless I was lecturing Mitch in that one where I was like, we were like, please stop hitting each other. Let us just play the set.
The pit was not having its way with the metalheads.
No, the worlds colliding at that point were not. That was a little rough.
All right, now look, we have to do it. Guy, who invented deathcore?
Who invented deathcore? I would say I'm going to say Dying Fetus probably is up there. Internal Bleeding. And everybody was, all of us we were all collectively jockeying Suffocation and Pyrexia. And I think it like Dying Fetus like sort of like would have perfected it with a couple of these other bands. Like we just were, we were a version of that with haircuts.
With less hair and less camo shorts, or maybe
we
had
the camo shorts. We brought we brought that like kind of teenage youth crew type look to that moshing death metal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We made a short haired version of it. But like there was so many of those bands that were doing really well with that. Like, because if you listen to like Eternal Suffering, who we were all jocking Suffocation, we were all jocking Pyrexia, and there's a handful of these other bands that were very much they were just doing the long haired version of it. Like these bands like Broken Hope or Internal Bleeding is definitely like one of the early ones there. They just were not having the same luck with the hardcore kids.
And then what's your reaction to, because look, this comes up a lot. I mentioned this earlier, but you guys get mentioned almost the most when this question is posed or when people are fighting online. So I'm curious what your perspective is on that.
They probably would have, all these people would have probably gotten into that sound through Dying Fetus if they were a little bit younger and had the origin story that we kind of did. Like we were just playing we were doing the same sort of thing. We were basically like emulating that sort of stuff, and we were just presenting it in a different package. We just happened to be 19 years old, whereas like those guys were a little bit older and their hair was longer and they could grow less patchy beards and and yeah, like I mean they're like we were it boils down to like all of these music scenes kind of have the same thing in common where it's a young man's game, and if you've got the the bright-eyed, like clean-faced, whatever, but 19-year-old that's like all exciting and running around like that, that's going to win like every time. That you're going to have the youth. And you hope that your band, like I know Crowbar right now, they're obviously like getting this like surgence of stuff, but it almost never happens like that, where you've gone through your whole career and all of a sudden, like, you know, something goes viral like that. It's generally that, you know, you're the young, nice looking front man, like the Suicide, you know, Mitch Looker, or you know, you've got like whatever thing the Job for a Cowboy kind of had, where like they just got the kids out, and like there's always somebody kind of like leading that charge that gets the younger people more excited. And well, I guess we had our moment, and it happened to just be when we were, you know, in our mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
Then we faded. We were put off the pasture.
All right, let's talk about this new band of yours.
Oh yes. So Kevin and I, from Ictus to the Red Chord, we were jamming together again in a band called Justifications. I've gotten as far. We haven't actually put up any new material online. It's at Justifications NH that we reserve some of the social media handles, like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. But it was me and Kevin. Mark is the other guitar player. He played in Austrian Death Machine.
Oh, cool.
And a couple other. I know all these guys from like the local area, but I'm just trying to think of like where other people will get into them. Jason played in a band called Since the Flood around here, and a few other like American Burn. I think Jason is the bass player, and I think Jason and Tony, the drummer, were both from a band called American Burn, and they've done like a bunch of like local stuff. Really outstanding, good dudes, and I jam with them once a week, and we're finally getting to a point where we're going to take our angry, chaotic hardcore out of the closet and hopefully roll out and try to do some stuff with it.
Okay, what can we expect, like sound wise? What are you guys shooting for?
Heavily influenced by like Buried Alive and Turmoil. I always end up having like a little bit of death metal in my voice, but yeah, like very that punchy, angry, you know, kind of late 90s, just like in your face hardcore. And then like just naturally we all end up like we end up like finding some degree of metal by like, say, like, you know, All Out War or something on that lines.
Okay. And then last thing, for real. Well, I mean,
5 last thing.
No, but
Sure.
I mean, what about the Red Chord? What's going on here?
So Red Chord, we resurrected it a little bit back in 2022, and that was the longest we'd ever been without the Red Chord. We took 7 years off from like 2015 to 2022, and the goal had always been, and the goal still always is, we want to make a new album. We played 3 shows in 2022, and unfortunately we got really kind of sidetracked where my dad had passed away, and it just kind of like 2023 went from like, hey, we're going to finally do this, to like, I just mentally wasn't there to do it. And then all of a sudden we started like getting like lost in the shuffle of like, oh, we're going to do these shows and do this and focus on like reissues. And then our drummer joined In Flames. So In Flames, and he plays in Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. And so he's like busy doing his real bands right now. And we're still just trying to kind of find out how to navigate that. Charner's our guy, and we absolutely want to make we do have a bunch of songs kind of structured, and I gotta get around to finishing lyrics and stuff, but ideally we're gonna hopefully see new material in some capacity and at least like record what we have. I'm hoping that we actually just get it together and just do a whole new record. It's just a matter of with Charn's playing second chair to In Flames is not an easy sort of situation to be in, and we're still kind of navigating that. But super psyched for him for
I mean, dude,
being a professional
Charn's the
musician.
GOAT though. Like, if
yes.
Dude, knew the Red Chord with Chard would fucking rule. Like I genuinely feel like he'd be like the perfect fit for this kind of style you guys do.
Yeah, he's unbelievable, and like we posted some of like the full sets, the full client sets and stuff with him. He is absolutely just like he's just an incredible drummer, and like I've loved making music with him, and I love playing with him. I love playing with all these guys. Like it's just at the heart of it, it's a pleasure to get up on stage with them, and it's a pleasure to get in a room with them. These are my best friends in the world, and it's just a privilege to get to still do stuff and create with these people. Red Chord is maybe 17 years overdue on a new album, so it's sickening to think that it's been from 2009 was the one we put out. Teeth Machine, but yeah, fingers crossed we'll get around to it. I'm always kind of breaking their chops a little bit because did you hear Umbra Vitae?
Yeah, it fucking rules, dude.
Right?
You told me about that, right?
So it's kind of like, why did they make this music but not you, Red Chord?
Well, yeah. So it was funny. I'll tell you. So Umbra Vitae was Jake Bannon's baby. Like where he was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this like death metal band or whatever," and he was going back and forth with. He was going back and forth with Gunface about doing a death metal band, and Sean Martin was going to be playing guitar in it. So then Gunface says, "Hey, Greg, you wanna be the bass player in it?" Okay, yeah, cool. And oh yeah, we'll get Sean. So all of a sudden it was like, I'm just like, wait a second. So like the whole Red Chord minus me, and you guys are gonna make a death metal record, and they're like, "Yep." And it's like, I feel like you guys are like cheating on me. So. I mean, like I love the albums, and I think that they, I think it has a different vibe with Jake and Sean, and I definitely completely back it. But at the same time, like at one point, I remember Mike saying, like, I don't know if I can write the stuff like Red Chord anymore. I was like, you just did. You did 2 albums. Like, what are you talking about?
Look. If there is another one of those albums that comes out before new Red Chord, we're gonna be very upset. Some conversations will be needed.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out just how to get it with the logistics and.
Someone's saying so. Justifications is a revenge band.
So no, Justifications is easy and it's amazing. There's no revenge about it because like it's awesome to be able to like have a band practice without a flight being involved and to get together with my friends and to like just scream my head off. And the good thing is that like with like lyrical concepts and stuff, there's no overthinking it. It's going to just be straight ahead and in your face and just very like
literal
pissed off. Yeah. And anything that comes out, like there's no wrong answer versus, I have 17 years of like, it's not just pent up ideas, but it's also pent up like expectations where I have to be like, oh, okay, well, I have to, in terms of being a lyricist and in terms of being a vocalist, like there's definitely a certain bar that was like set by all of us back in, back in all those 3 or 4 records. So, I think you're going to see the Justification stuff sooner than the Red Chord stuff, but I'm very much looking forward to getting Red Chord out in some capacity because I miss it, and I feel like we all collectively owe the Red Chord and all the people that follow the Red Chord. Like I feel like we definitely want to see something happen with it.
Hell yeah! Well, dude, thank you so much, man, for doing this, for taking the time. This was awesome, dude. I had a blast. And
well, thank you, man, and I appreciate what you guys do. And I know I was telling you before. I appreciate the positive vibe and the you guys come off as being genuinely excited about this, and it definitely makes it a real fulfilling thing to for bands to want to hop on here.
I appreciate that. Of course, that's the goal.
We're stoked. I mean, there's a reason why we, talk about those years and that era. And I mean, at this point, it's fair to say we're obsessed. I don't remember how many episodes we have, but I think it would be kind of insane not to acknowledge it. But genuinely, it's like we started this because it's important for us. So just to give credit to have somebody, it's rare that we can, have somebody like you who's been around, and not to say we're old. I'm just saying. That's been around enough to relate and to tell the newer generation. I sound even older now, but to tell the new kids how it was actually, and to tell those stories. There would be no other ways of that stuff. You cannot just go online and find out about it. You need to talk about these things. So
yeah, and I mean the reality is. The scene as a whole in a very different place. Like when we came up and did a lot of these shows, up in your neck of the woods and stuff, the first times through, it's like there's just not that many people there, and like just because we were around in like the 90s and early 2000s, like it's a different ball game right now. We could tell all the the Beneath the Massacre and Iron Dissonance and Despise stories. There's so many of those, like the best shows that you would have played with the best lineups, and you probably played them to 50 people or less.
Yeah, lucky, you see these stacked fucking lineups with. Now you look back on these lineups with these bills that are insane, and you're like, yeah, well, that looks cool now, but like back then they were just kind of all nobody, just friends, buddies that were playing to small ass fucking venues and sleeping on maybe a couch.
Oh yeah, lots of like, hey, Kuna, we sleep in your driveway type of things, and happens.
Yes, I mean, look, to me personally, driveway was always better than the inside of the house, always, without fail. I don't know, man. Very few houses were better than the van, the sanctity of the van.
Oh yeah, well the hey, yeah, you guys could sleep in my kitchen with the sticky floors and.
And by the way, we called 30 people for a party when we know you wanted to go sleep, but we're partying, turns out.
Yeah, thanks. Right. Lots of that. Well,
thank
you guys.
Dude.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man, for real. This was awesome.
Yeah,
and I have to say, dude, I have so much shit more that we could have talked about. So we're gonna have to do a redo at some point. We'll let it breathe, man. But we got to have you back on, man. You've got more knowledge for us to spill.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Talk soon.
Yep.
If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you for watching. And hey, while you're here, hit that subscribe or follow button and a review. If you're watching or listening on a podcast platform, it would mean the world, and it helps out more than you know. A big thank you as well to all of our supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch. New episodes every week, links to our Patreon, Discord, and socials in the description. We'll see you soon. We're out.